Welcome, first of all, to the greenest convention center in the country. We are the gold standard of green. We have solar panels. We have recycling programs second to none. We have been recognized by multiple rating agencies for the sustainable nature of this facility. So we're very proud of it. But one of my favorite stories, and Ann Hunt, who is my environmental policy coordinator, somewhere here in the audience, I got a call from Craig Leopold, who was the owner of the Minnesota Wild, and he was just like, Mayor, we want to do these sustainable things, but just could you back off just a little bit? Could you have Ann not call me all the time? And I said, sure. Of course, I said, Ann, ramp it up. Let's do even more. So I reminded Craig of that story a couple of years later when he was receiving all these awards for his sustainability, and he was kind of glad that we didn't back off on that. But it's an example of what you can do from a city level. The second thing I want to do before I actually start my remarks is, can the visitors from other countries raise their hands again? All right, so most of them are over here. You guys didn't get the memo. We wanted the foreigners over there. Most importantly, I want people to recognize them. And if you're from the United States, could you please adopt them and try to explain Donald Trump to our foreign visitors? I know it's confusing, but don't worry, it's confusing to us too, so we're not sure. Well, I'm glad to be here today to speak. First of all, I'm just very happy that all of you are here today to celebrate kids in nature, to celebrate the connecting that we do to get kids involved in outdoor play, to understand the importance of that for social emotional learning and growth. I come by this work partly just out of a pure passion myself for nature. I grew up in a family that really celebrated being outdoors, and I always kind of thought of it as the big outdoor adventures, going off to the national parks or going up to the Boundary Waters canoe area. And what I realized as I was kind of preparing my remarks for this, I spent most of my time outdoors, just in the woods behind my house, just going through that wonderful experience that I'm sure a lot of us as kids remember when you're first playing in the woods and you kind of don't understand what those burrs are, and then your mom's got to cut your hair to get all those burrs out of your. First she tried peanut butter. I said, why are you putting peanut butter in my hair? And she said, it's not working. I'm just going to cut all of it off. And so that was my first exposure to nature. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fun. Later on, I realized that it actually can be more than that. And I got a chance to go to Outward Bound. That was my graduation present. I did a 25-day mission or Outward Bound trip up to the Boundary Waters just after my freshman year of college. I went out to Glacier National Park to work at East Glacier Lodge for the first summer, went out to the Tetons the next summer, went back to Glacier. All of those experiences were really incredibly important to me, really shaped a lot of my thinking about kind of, first of all, my own skill sets, what I was capable of doing, but also how important it is to get other kids that same opportunity that I had. And so many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, we began this program to try to get kids out to Glacier National Park. And this is one of my favorite pictures of all the pictures that I've been associated with. Not that I was in this picture, but to see these kids, this is just off the Highline Trail, that have never imagined what the mountains would be or what wilderness really was, to be out in Glacier National Park for 5 or 6 days, hiking, camping, cooking outdoors, doing all those things, just an incredible opportunity. And I know how important these opportunities are and how transformative they are. If you were at the lunch, the funders' lunch yesterday, there was an opportunity to hear from a young woman who just said, going out to Glacier was transformative for me. And now she's paying it forward to a whole group of other young adults, kind of teaching them about the importance of being out in the wilderness. So I just love this picture. But one of the things it reminds me of is how all the different pieces of getting kids outdoors, all the different parts of that equation. First of all, the partnerships that you have to have. We have partnerships with this program with the National Park Service, Wilderness Inquiry, which I am proud to be a member of the board of. We've had our Parks and Rec department that has really led this effort, the St. Paul Public School System and the AVID program, which is Advancement via Individual Determination. The kids that were going out to Glacier were participants in the AVID program. which is dedicated towards kids that were heading off to college, but probably the first ones in their family to have ever gone to college. It took this incredible partnership, not the least of which was private, I guess, philanthropic funding for us to be able to do this. An incredible program that really, again, is transformative for those kids that get to go on the big trip, but also the network that we put together to get them just outdoors in our own backyard. Some of you may remember when Ken Burns spoke, or did his documentary on the National Park Service, one of the conversations that came out of that is how few people of color are getting out into the wilderness. And the disconnect that we have, because wilderness and that kind of that uniquely American thing to preserve large tracts of wilderness was being missed out on by a huge segment of our population. And he talked about it from different perspectives, but one of which is, for those of us that care about our national parks as we celebrate our 100th anniversary, a lot of that is who's going to be 50 years from now fighting for preservation of our national parks if we're not exposing all of our children to that opportunity. Because at some point, 50 years down the road, somebody's going to have to be supporting the Glacier National Park Foundation or the National Park Foundation itself or any of these other things. And so there's a self-interest for those of us that care about wilderness that goes beyond the social emotional learning that happens in the individual, but this is about building a future generation of supporters for our great tracts of wilderness, and we need to do that. You know, all of you, I suspect, in this room could speak more eloquently to these issues than I can, because you live it, you work it every day. But we know how important it is for us to get kids in nature, and we know how poorly we're doing at that. We have, on average, our kids are spending 7.5 hours plus a day in front of a screen. They're spending 7 minutes outside. That is a disconnect that really needs to be dealt with somehow. You cannot continue to have kids that have no exposure, and again, not talking about going on big trips out to the national parks, but just going out in their own backyard, having those exploration opportunities, going through the woods. When you live on the banks of the Mississippi River, there's all kinds of opportunities if we can get our kids out there, but they're spending so much time in front of a screen that they never even think about going outside. And it's problematic for a whole lot of different reasons. You know the health consequences of that. When we're seeing more and more kids with early onset of type 2 diabetes, we know that we need to do something. We know that we need to get our kids more physically active, and the best way to do that is to create opportunities for them locally to do that and form the partnerships that are necessary to make that happen. You know, Richard has done such an amazing job of raising awareness of this issue and the nature deficit disorder. But again, when I first started thinking about this, I thought about it in the great nature tracks of it. But more importantly, and as I've come to realize it, is there's so much that we can do on a local level to get our kids, just get them outside, get them engaged, and get them exposed to being outside. But our kids are afraid of outdoors. It's kind of amazing. When we talk to kids and we talk about going camping, it is the scariest thing that they can think of. And a lot of these kids are exposed to gunshots regularly in their neighborhood. They're exposed to levels of violence in their neighborhood, and a lot of times in their own homes. But for them, frightening is actually having to sleep outside because it's unknown, and it's really a scary thing for them. But that's one of the things that we can, by just slowly exposing our kids to nature, we can help them understand that they don't have to be afraid of being outside, that they can embrace it and enjoy it. There's no question that cities can be leaders and innovators on this. First of all, we have to be, because the majority of the world's population is living in cities right now. We have the resources and the tools at our disposal. We are leading on sustainability efforts. We are leading on a lot of different fronts. If you looked at, I had the great fortune to go to Paris for the climate conference this last December. This is a picture of all the mayors from across the globe that had gathered, over 400 plus mayors in Paris for the climate change. And mayors, we were the cool kids on the block. It was really kind of fun because people while on one level they were talking about what they were going to do about climate change, the mayors were getting together and talking about what we were doing about climate change and what was actually happening and how we were making a difference. And it was really great to be part of that. We can take that same level of leadership, we can take that same level of partnership and spread the connection of kids to nature across the globe and really start to make a difference. You know, from the beginning, I've been mayor now for over 10 years, we have really tried to put kids at the center of our policy making. We really tried to understand that when we are reaching out to our kids, trying to close the achievement gap, trying to help them develop healthy lifestyles, trying to figure out how to make them, you know, give them opportunities, that it answers so many of the questions that we have on any level. When you think about, you know, particularly around education, I've always said education is my economic development strategy, it is my crime fighting strategy, is my neighborhood development strategy, because if our kids get the education that they need, if they have the tools that they need to be part of a 21st century workforce, then all of those other challenges that we have about, you know, crime rates and all those things, if our kids are working, if our kids are in school, all of those other issues go away. And so from a city standpoint, we have to have children at the center of our policy making, and we have to have them, you know, just all of the resources that we can muster have to relate somehow back to the closing this achievement gap. It's really a disconnect for those of you that aren't from Minnesota. We take great pride. If you look at the statistics, Minnesota's at the top of almost any chart on educational attainment. We're at the top on employment. We're at the top on housing ownership. We are at the top of so many different things. The problem is we have among the greatest divides between our white communities and our communities of color of any place in the country. And people are starting to understand, not only is it a moral imperative that we change that, it is an absolute economic imperative, because we're a very high-tech economy in the Twin Cities. We have a diverse group of companies and sectors, but the fact of the matter is you have to have a certain amount of education to be able to take jobs in those sectors. And if we're leaving over half of our kids behind, if our kids aren't graduating from high school on time, if they're not graduating with the skill sets that they need, our economy, not in the long distance future, but in the very short distance future, will begin to collapse because we don't have the workers that we need to be able to fill those positions. And so there's a whole lot of energy coming around understanding that not only the moral imperative of closing the achievement gap, but the economic imperative of doing it as well. And I think that getting kids in nature, exposing them to the outdoors becomes a center piece of that. We have our version of Cincinnati has Strive. Ours in the Twin Cities is called Generation Next, that kind of 360-degree approach to education. And we fought for a long time to get a specific bandwidth, not just about, you know, third grade reading levels and eighth grade math levels and graduation rates, but a very specific bandwidth around social emotional learning. Because I'm increasingly convinced that this lack of developing those skill sets that you need to be successful, grit, determination, all of those things that encompass the non-cognitive skills, are as important as reading, as math. We have to help our kids develop those skill sets in order to be successful, and there's no better way to do that than connecting our kids to nature. We have a lot of different programs. I can go on. We've developed an out-of-school time network called Sprockets. We have a very strong, very healthy Promised Neighborhood initiative that is making great strides. We have summer youth employment called Right Track that also involves opportunities for kids to work in the outdoors. And we're continuing to kind of put all these pieces together. We've had in Minnesota, we've had a great fortune. A few years ago, we passed a 3/8 of a cent sales tax. We call it the Legacy Amendment, where those funds are dedicated to the outdoors, to wilderness, but also part of those funds are dedicated to developing leadership in the outdoors and really putting programs together to help for environmental education and a lot of those pieces. So if you don't have a similar program in your states or your countries, you've got to figure out, this is a resource issue at some point. We're very fortunate in the state of Minnesota to have some of those resources available. In St. Paul, this is really kind of, it's an all hands on deck approach. It obviously, Parks and Recreation are the center of our connecting our kids to outdoors. We have incredible programs in a lot of different areas. We have bee sanctuaries, and we have programs in our Parks and Rec department to get our kids outdoors. We have a lot of different ways that we go about it. But it's not just Parks and Rec, it's our libraries. I'll talk a little bit more about our nature backpacks in our libraries that help expose our kids to the outdoors. It's our police department taking kids out, not just taking them out fishing, taking them out biking. We have a program in our police department called Safe Summer Nights, an incredible community partnership where once a week during the summer in a different neighborhood, the cops just come out, they start barbecuing for kids, they're outdoors, they bring out equipment, they bring out jump castles, they bring out all these things just to get kids, first of all, out and engaged, but also to help them get to know their police officers, to help building those relationships. And it's a great thing to see, and it does work. But it isn't just, you can't just say, well, this is Parks and Recs Department's job, and everybody else gets a pass. The most effective way that we can go about this is to engage every aspect of our city and figure out public works is an incredible, you wouldn't necessarily think about it, but think about bike paths and how important it is to get our kids, make it easier for them to ride their bikes to school or to a playground, et cetera. So our Public Works Department becomes a huge piece of that. But we also have incredible, we have a great park system in the city of St. Paul. This is a battle. This is why I want to build a wall between Minneapolis and St. Paul, because we're always we're in a very healthy competition between our two cities. Last year, we were co-named as the #1 park system in the United States of America by the Trust for Public Lands, it was kind of great the fact we're challenging each other is to help develop a better park system and really encouraging each other to figure out how we can get more of our kids outdoors. And it's a great, and as I say, a healthy competition. So I mentioned the role that libraries can play in the backpacks in our libraries. We have this great program that puts gives kids access to these backpacks that, it might have them, there might be cards about animals that they would spot outdoors, and kids can kind of go out and start exploring, or bugs that they can find. We've had camping programs at Sunray Library. I think some of you are going to go over today and see the Sunray Library. The funny thing is we've had kids camping out at Sunray Library in the rec center over there. But then the people keep on calling the cops and saying, there are kids that are camping out in our parks. And we're trying to yeah, that's actually a planned thing. We kind of want that. But what's interesting about the Sunray Library is we have an outdoor reading garden there. We have a nature nook. We have a pollinator garden. We're going to be hosting a hive of bees over there. In addition to the backpacks that we have. It is just really, it's amazing the things that you can do when you start connecting nature directly to the work that our libraries, our parks, and other agencies are doing. We've also learned that it's important for us as we develop events, it's not just about the kids. A lot of our families have said, we really want to have multi-generational, intergenerational events. To connect our grandparents with their grandchildren and allow them opportunities to go ice fishing, to just get outdoors. This becomes an important piece to focus in on this intergenerational piece. We also realize that particularly for our immigrant communities, a lot of folks they just don't have a connection to the parks. And so we develop a Parks Ambassador program. We have in the Midway District, we have a very large East African population. And within a couple miles of them is one of the greatest regional parks that we have, Como Park. And the folks, the East African community that was living at 1247 St. Anthony had no connection to that park. Well, through the Park Ambassador program, we got folks out to Como Park. they start to, all of a sudden they realize that this resource was there, and it has made a huge difference in terms of kind of how they connect. The building that they're in is right next to the freeway. It's surrounded by Target and other kind of big, large concrete pads, and so there was no connection at all between 1247 St. Anthony and nature. But once they understood that nature was just, not that far away, through the Ambassadors Program, we were really able to change their perception, and now this has become a huge resource for our East African community. We've been really fortunate in the city to develop great partnerships because we have the relationship with the National Park Service, and we have the Mississippi River here. We've started the Big River Journey. It is basically it's a classroom on a boat. I was with a group of kids as they were going out on the boat a few weeks ago. It's targeted at 3rd and 5th graders or 3rd to 5th graders. We've had over 70,000 kids participating in this program over the last 20 years. It's an amazing thing. They'll have stations set up on the boat. The boat goes up and down the Mississippi River. They talk about the different animals and birds that they see. It's so fun to see the reaction of those kids when they get on the boat and actually get out on the Mississippi River. Frogtown Park and Farm is a great partnership with the Trust for Public Land. It was just this old home of a foundation, the Wilder Foundation. We were able to procure the land with support through Trust for Public Lands and put green space in a place that was in desperate need of green space in the Frogtown neighborhood of the city of St. Paul. That was an idea that was started by just a couple of parents in that neighborhood saying, we really got to figure out what we can do with this and create that opportunity to create green space. And so now it's a 13-acre site. It is going to have all different aspects to it, including a garden that the kids will be able to work on, and it will be something that they can just walk to and be part of. We heard from Greg earlier about the urban wilderness canoe adventures and wilderness inquiry. Getting kids out on the river, and I've had a chance to paddle with them, not just in St. Paul, but I was out in Washington, D.C. a couple summers ago, getting kids out on the Anacostia, and it's a kind of a similar experience to other things that I've witnessed. They are deathly afraid of getting out on that boat, and by the time they get ready to get out of the boat, they're so confident, and they've just had a great experience. It's an incredible thing that we see what happens to our kids when they have an opportunity to do things that they had never been able to try before. We're really working to develop fully our riverfront to make it more accessible to kids to get out on. We have a plan for an environmental learning center that will be a huge draw from really not just across the region, but across the entire state of Minnesota to get kids out on the Mississippi River. We hope to be moving forward on this fairly soon. If we could get a bonding bill from the state legislature, it would be a little bit easier. We've had a great partner with the Riverfront Development Corporation to really kind of map out the future of the river and how we can make it more connected to the work that we're doing. We've developed a plan called the Great River Passage Plan that is it's a 50-year plan, but it's all about making sure that the city of St. Paul is connected to the river in a lot of different ways. Obviously, we're very, the fact that we are in a national park or just across the street from the national park is an amazing resource that helps open up a lot of different partnerships. We're very excited about that. Even in places where you don't necessarily think about the connection to nature, we need to start thinking about that connection. So a year ago, we opened up the Green Line, which is the light rail line that runs between downtown St. Paul and downtown Minneapolis. It goes through the University of Minnesota campus, a bunch of different employment centers. But we made it sure that as we were building out that design, that there was just even a tree canopy, that there were just open park spaces along the way, so that it wasn't just a concrete jungle and it didn't just look like a freeway, that it really was connecting, even in small ways, kids to nature. The West Side Flats, which is a plan for development across the river, really understanding that you start with park space and open space as kind of a key to it, because if you just build, we've made that mistake in the past in this country, building huge concrete jungles where there is no connection to nature is a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing for the families that live there, and we need to continually to put green space and open space at the center of all of our designs. I actually get paid for every time I use the phrase vibrant places and spaces. I don't, it's in my contract. This was a tagline that we use. But we really are trying to create vibrant places and spaces. That's another dollar. But really trying to, just activate, whether, again, it's bike paths, or it's open space in front of schools, or it's just how we connect our streets to our neighborhoods, to really make sure, if any of you know the work of Gil Penalosa in 880, this has been really driving. About 3-4 years ago, Gil gave a speech to the Riverfront Corporation dinner and really brought this home to us, that we've got to create places that are walkable, that are bikeable, that work for kids that are 80 or 8 years old, that work for people that are 80 years old. And if you build a system that works for 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds, you're really building a community that does have vibrant places and spaces, but it makes it easier for kids to get outdoors. We're very proud. Very proud of our park spaces in the city of St. Paul. But most importantly, we're very proud of the partnerships that we have with all of the different agencies. These are the urban wilderness canoes, getting kids outdoors, getting them out fishing, taking advantage of this incredible beauty that we have here. And so I'm not a big PowerPoint guy, right? So I've just done a PowerPoint. But here's what I want to talk about. This is just a thing that I'm so passionate about. I know what happens when we connect our kids to nature. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's in the backyard or it's out in one of our national parks. I had, and if you've heard me speak at all on this topic, you've heard me tell this story. But years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was out in Glacier National Park with the kids that we sent out from the St. Paul Public School System. And I got a chance to hike along the Highline Trail with a group of kids. And I was behind this one young man, maybe 15 years old or 16 years old. And as he got out if you've ever been out to Glacier and you're on the Highline Trail, the first big stretch of the Highline Trail is just a sheer cliff. And you have to the path is about the size of this podium. You have to hold on to a guy wire as you go along it. And as I was walking down this path, this young man, with every step he took, got smaller and smaller and smaller. And by the time he got to the end of this section, he sat down on a rock, and I said, "Let me get a picture of you." And he said, No, I don't want you to take a picture. I'm crying." So I said, "What's going on? How can I help?" And he said, "I am deathly afraid of heights. I am just absolutely petrified." And that was like the scariest thing I've ever done. He said, "But I'm actually crying because I am so happy to be out here. This is the most thrilling thing I've ever done in my life." So we went out, we hiked for a couple more hours. We went up to the pass, we played around, the kids got to go off and explore. They came back, we were hiking back along this exact same stretch of wall. And as they walked past this stretch the second time, all the adults were reminding this young man, "Hold on to the guy wire. Would you pay attention?" He was up, he was just kind of bouncing around, playing with his water bottle. He was so carefree. And that same section of the path that had brought him to his knees a couple of hours earlier, by virtue of him being out there and conquering that fear and having a chance to explore nature, the confidence that you could see just explode in that young man in just that short period of time was amazing. And what I realized at that moment was what happens when we give our kids a chance to explore, to conquer their fears, to do things that they never thought they were capable of doing. If we deprive our children of that opportunity, we are depriving them of the key building block to success, in my mind. That skills that says, you know what, I can overcome difficult situations. I can overcome challenges in my life. If you look at all of the research around social emotional learning, grit, determination, all of those skill sets, that executive leadership skills, whatever you call them, are absolutely necessary to embed in our children. Because you can have them do drills on math questions, you can have them do reading programs, you can have them do all those things. But unless they internalize in themselves that they can accomplish whatever they want to accomplish, all the drills in the world won't make a difference. There is no better place to impart those skill sets than getting our kids outdoors, getting them out on the Mississippi River, getting them hiking in a glacier or on a trail in Glacier National Park, exploring bees in a park next to their house. Whatever it is, we owe it to our children to make this happen. All of you are part of that. All of you are engaged in that work, and you are engaged in what I think is the most important work that we can do. So, as the mayor of the city of St. Paul, as a kid who just enjoys wilderness and knows how important it was for me personally, I want to just thank you for your work. Keep it up. Let's help our children succeed. Thank you.